What's up, folks? Back again with another video. And this is a video in response to a lot of questions I got from a lot of my 2A people, after I did the last video talking about the Manus X. I got I got DMs. Well, I had more views on that video probably than ever. And I had a lot of questions, more questions than ever. And it's just some real crazy comments about a shotgun and being in the city and why would you need a shotgun. Folks want to call you a FUD like Elmer Fudd, because you advocate for a shotgun or whatever, or shotguns is only good for hunting, bird hunting and all that. Okay, so you might not think a shotgun is good for home defense. And I'm going to do a couple videos, this is going to be the first one in succession because it's a lot to cover. And I'm just going to tell you a couple reasons why I think for home defense, inside of your home, I don't think you're going to find anything better than a shotgun. Number one, let's start with why. Let's start with that first, and then we'll talk about maybe in another video what makes a good defensive shotgun. Before I get started, I do have mine here with me. The rounds you see on this gun, get you some of these if you have a shotgun. These are all blanks. These are all, like, you can see the back of these with the holes in them. These are all, and you see the front of these. These are all blanks. The gun is empty. No rounds in the shotgun. No rounds in the gun. Gun is clear. So, just so you know. Anyway, so why a shotgun for home defense? Number one, the versatility of it. Whether you live in an apartment or whether you live in a big house, with a lot of property that you have to protect, or if you live on a big property or farm or something and you get a lot of critters around, a shotgun is so versatile that you can handle anything. A shotgun you can load with everything from birdshot. You can go from shooting pheasants to rhinoceros. No, listen, you can go from shooting birds to buffalo with a shotgun. I mean, it's just a matter of what you put in the gun. And as far as, you're not going to find one weapon that is just that versatile. It's real versatile. If you live in an apartment complex and you're worried about overpenetration and things like that, where some people, if you have a 40 caliber, a 9mm, a 45, a 357, 44 Magnum, you got to worry about overpenetration, that bullet traveling and going through walls and hitting other people, hitting your kids, hitting your wife, hitting your mother-in-law, your family members, your grandmother, you're going through the wall, hitting your neighbors. Rounds overpenetrate. Some people say, well, you get an AR-15 or a pistol caliber carbine. Well, a rifle overpenetrates. You're going to have to consider where you live, your backstop, and where that round is going to stop. You always have to consider. Now, there's frangible ammunition that you can buy, like for an AR-15. I don't know if they sell it for 9mm and stuff like that, but I'm sure they probably sell something like that. But for a shotgun, all you have to do is adjust the load, and you can remedy that. Now, would I suggest birdshot for home defense? There's some people, that say, birdshot will work. Now, it depends on the distance. If a person is 25, 30 feet away from you and you shoot them with birdshot, I guarantee you, all you're going to do is you probably just going to make them mad. You're going to just upset that person to the point where now they really going to try to get at you. And if they on drugs or something like that, man, you know, and they all high and you shoot them with birdshot. See, birdshot doesn't penetrate deep enough to hit anything vital to stop a person. And the thing about a shotgun, this is another reason why shotgun for home defense, it's the devastating power. If you look at, or they keep a record of police shootings with handguns, rifles, and shotguns. And they say that 50% of the time, a one-shot stop with a handgun, with a pistol, 50% of the time, police will get a stop with one shot, with 1 to 3 shots. 50% of the time. So half the time, you got to use anywhere from 3 to 6 rounds or more just to stop a person. And that's why you see when people train with handguns, they train to shoot more than one time. When they train to shoot to stop with a handgun, you see people training shooting multiple times. Bam, 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 bam. You're training to shoot multiple times because most of the time, one round is not going to stop a person. You can go online and see videos of people going up against officers and officers having to empty, you know, a handgun into a person to get a stop, or to shoot 5 or 6 times in order to stop the threat. So there's not a guaranteed stop with one round from a handgun or a rifle. You have veterans around this country who've been in war who talk about anywhere from 3 to 5 shots with a 5.56, that's with a rifle, it takes to put a person down. So with a shotgun, typically, if you put 1 to 2 rounds from a 12 gauge shotgun on a person, typically that ends the threat. 1 to 2 rounds from a 12 gauge shotgun guarantees a change of behavior, as my man says on LuckyGunner.com. Yeah, I mean, they might be wilding and trying to kill you, but after 1 shot, usually you get a 1-shot stop. Why? Because with a shotgun shell, you get multiple projectiles. Like in a 12 gauge shotgun, double-aught buckshot, you're going to get anywhere from 8, 9 to 12 rounds, depending on how that shell is loaded, and whether you're using a Magnum shell, a 3-inch shell, or 2 3/4 inch. 2 3/4 inch is your most common load. Now, those 9 projectiles, the fact that they are hitting at one time, that's like being shot 9 times to 12 times, or anywhere from 8 to 12 times at once with a 9mm handgun, because those projectiles are double-aught buck are 0.33 inches. So you're talking about getting hit, and usually, if you're anywhere from, like, depending upon the ammunition you're using, if you're using anything like Federal Flight Control, double-aught buckshot, or your Hornady Critical Defense, or Hornady Black, where they have a particular wad that holds that shot real tight for distance, you're going to get a real compact shot on target at a real close range, and that is going to put that person down. I heard Clint Smith, a person, if you don't know who Clint Smith is, Googling, you know, he's a veteran, a gentleman out at Thunder Ranch, him and those people, they talk about the devastation of shotguns all the time and why shotguns are good for home defense. And I'm gonna be dispelling some of the myths about shotguns too. In this video, I'm just telling you why I think it's good for home defense. So I'll be coming, like I said, I'm already 9 minutes into this, and all I'm just telling you is why it's good for home defense. You know, people say that pistols put holes in people, rifles put holes through people, but a shotgun with at the right distance, with the right load in it, will take a chunk off a person and put it on the floor. And that is That's for real. Shotguns are devastating, and they stop a threat within 1 to 2 shots. That's it. You know, if you put a shot of double-aught buckshot on a target anywhere from inside the distance of your home. Now, if you got a hallway that's 40 yards in your house, man, you got a big crib. I don't have a hallway that long, but inside your house, what you talking about? 10 yards, 15 yards. I mean, that's a lot. If you got anything more than that inside your house, you talk about, a long distance, but we're talking about like across the kitchen, across the hallway, and from the bedroom to the door, with 15, 20 feet, and if you put a shot of double-aught buck on a target from that distance, you are guaranteed to see a change in behavior of that person who's trying to do you harm. So now, if you live in an apartment, say you live in an apartment complex or a condominium or something like that, you can change your load instead of double-aught buck, because double-aught buck will penetrate, through walls and maybe go through your interior walls and out your exterior walls. Double-aught buck travels at a high velocity, typically anywhere from 1,100 for your low recoil, 1,100 feet per second to anywhere to up to 1,600 feet per second. So we're not even talking about slugs. And that's a whole nother thing. We can talk about ammunition later. But that will penetrate, through walls and, kill somebody that you didn't mean. That's why, and you're responsible for every pellet that leaves your gun. Every projectile that leaves that gun, you're going to be held responsible for. So you need to know your target and what's beyond it. That's one of the 4 rules of gun safety. All right. Now, what can you do if you live in an apartment complex, a condo, or a community where you live close together? Well, a lot of people suggest, like number 1 buckshot or number 3 buckshot, but one of the most popular ones is number 4. Number 4 buckshot from the right distance, you will get the desired result on target. You will put that target down. Now, typically, the FBI, they use they use this gelatin blocks, and they shoot from a certain distance and see what kind of penetration they get. Typically, they say they want anywhere from 13 to 18 inches of penetration in order to guarantee that that projectile is going to hit vital organs and stop the person who was trying to cause harm. So with number 4 buckshot, you'll get, there's sometimes there's issues with that deep penetration, but what you don't get is over penetration. You get enough if you're close enough to stop a person. If they within, I'm telling you, if they within, 7.5 yards to 10 yards, you'll get the desired result. That's enough with number 4, you'll stop them. But what you won't have is the problem with it going through them, through a wall, and an exterior wall, and hitting somebody else. So over penetration, you can mitigate by changing up your ammunition. There's a lot of different ammunition to put in a shotgun. I just don't recommend bird shot for anything other than birds, squirrels, small critters, small, anything small. I don't recommend it for for 4-legged targets like deer and 2-legged targets, people. I don't recommend it for that. Not birdshot. What else? Then also you have, you can use slugs. If you live on a huge property, you have a farm, or you don't have a farm, you just have a large property, and say you have hogs that come out there and they tearing up your property, or you have coyotes come out, they're stealing your chickens, or a lot of people raising their own chickens because the price of eggs and all that. Some people are just like, hey, I'm getting chickens, and then they finding out. Even right here in the metro Atlanta area, they got a problem with coyotes, you know? And them things, they'll take small, if you got a small dog, they'll eat that. A cat, they'll run off with your chickens and all that. So you don't have to be way out in the country to experience that. You just need to be in a suburban area and you can experience that. And with coyotes, you can change up your load and you can take down coyotes with double-aught buckshot, number 4 buckshot, or with slugs. Now with slugs allow you to turn your shotgun into a rifle. I do have one slug here, just so you can see what that is. Now you see, this is a slug. And you see the front of that? I'm trying to get it at the right distance. You see, a slug is just one big chunk of metal. One big chunk of metal. And this one here is 1 ounce. It's 1 ounce, and it's like 460 something grains. That's heavier than a rifle bullet. That's heavier than any bullet that you're going to be shooting. It's a big chunk of metal, and this particular slug travels at like 1,800 feet per second. That's faster than a 9mm bullet, which typically those are traveling, just around 1,200 or over 1,200 feet per second. It's faster than my 10mm rounds that are traveling at 1,300 feet per second. This big chunk traveling at faster than a 9mm or a 10mm round, or even a 45 caliber round. This big chunk of metal will allow you to turn your shotgun into a limited range rifle. Now, you might not get 500 yards like you will with a rifle, but you can get 100 to 200 yards out. So if you have pigs at the edge of your property 100 yards out, and in the southeast, I don't know where you are watching this video, but in the south, we have a problem with pigs. Wild pigs, they everywhere. They tear up people's property. And like I said, even in the metro Atlanta area, they got problems with coyotes. If you got a coyote on the perimeter of your property, 50 yards away, 75 yards away, a slug will allow you to reach out and touch it, where you can, if you're out and, you have your shotgun with you and you're on the perimeter of your property, it will allow you to not only take out those pesky, critters, those problem animals that tear up property and walk off with your livestock and your game and your pets. It'll allow you to handle that. It'll allow you to handle it at a distance. So slugs turn your shotgun into a limited use rifle, okay? And all you have to do is just drop one in. You drop that slug in, cock your shotgun open, drop in that slug, aim, squeeze the trigger. Now, would I suggest you use a slug in your house for home defense? No. I don't. Look, if you ain't worried about, if you live way out in the country and you don't have to worry about what you hit and all that kind of stuff, then, you do what you got to do, because, you might want to use a rifle or whatever. But I would say, if you live in a suburban area or urban area, or a condo or apartment, or even a house in an urban area, I would not suggest you use this. Why? Because they are going to over penetrate, and there ain't no telling where a slug is going to stop. Slugs will penetrate walls. They'll penetrate your interior walls, your exterior wall, and your neighbor's exterior wall, and kill somebody sitting down having lunch. I mean, or having dinner, or somebody sleeping in their bed. The slugs are very powerful, and you know it when you shoot a shotgun. When you shoot a shotgun with slugs in it, you feel it. Now, there's a way you can mitigate recoil. You're going to have recoil with a shotgun, but there's a way to mitigate it. Now, why else? Because some people say, oh man, a shotgun has too much recoil. I wouldn't do it for home defense. Listen, there's a way to mitigate recoil. You're going to have recoil with a shotgun because it's powerful, but there's ways to mitigate it. Now, you get less recoil with semi-automatic shotguns, and there's a lot of those out there. That's a conversation for another day. There's also the push-pull method, that's where you take your shotgun and let me step back, and it's like you almost tearing the shotgun in half when you pull the trigger. You push in the front and you pull with the back end of your shotgun. They call it the push-pull method. And you don't blade yourself off like I'm doing right now. I'm just doing this to demonstrate. But push, pull. And you do that when you pull, right before you break the shot. Right before you squeeze the trigger, push, pull the trigger. That will mitigate recoil. There's a lot of people out there, you can look up the videos, push-pull method, and I'll talk about that more. But right now, I just want to talk about why a shotgun for home defense. Number one, the versatility. Number two, the power. Number three, when ammunition is scarce, you can find shotgun ammunition anywhere. I know this for a fact. When I was trying to find ammunition for my handgun during the pandemic, when I was trying to find ammunition for my handgun, ammunition for my rifle, all of that, man, and my nephew would tell you, Hezekiah, he was with me. We were going to the range one day, and I went from Academy Sports, Dick's Sporting Goods. I was running everywhere trying to get ammunition for my rifle, and I wound up, having to buy something at the range. They would only sell you. They would only sell you 2 boxes. That's what they sell you, 2 boxes. They only allow you to buy 2 boxes at a time. So it was crazy. But you know what I could find everywhere? Man, shotgun shells was everywhere. That's what made me go get a shotgun. Because shotgun, typically you could walk into Walmart, you could walk into your local sporting goods stores, and you'll find shotgun ammunition. I mean, you'll find 12 gauge ammunition everywhere. Trust me, it's not hard to find. And that's the other good thing about it is typically shotgun ammo, you don't have to do a bunch of, you don't have to stockpile 1,000 rounds of that. You know why? Because when you can't find nothing else, you're going to find that. You're going to find that shotgun ammo when you can't find nothing else that is going to be around for you. So you don't have to go crazy stockpiling it. The only stuff I stockpile is stuff that's not American, that's range ammo, that was dirt cheap. I did that before the tariffs kicked in. You know why? Because I'm smart. No, now see, look, all this stuff going on with Canada, and look, those slugs I buy from Troy, and the what's the other one? The slugs and there's slugs, and then there's another number 4 buck, and some stuff I buy to go to the range with. But the slugs that I buy that move at 1,900 feet per second, really, they move at like 14, 15. They advertise, the Canadians say, I don't know what chronograph they using, but it don't move that fast. I don't know what chronograph they using, but nah. Anyway, now if you buy that ammo with the tariffs in place, you spending a lot more for it. That's even if you can find it, because importers don't want to bring it in because they have to mark it up so much they can't sell it. Nobody paying for that, paying all that money for that. So I got it before the tariffs kicked in. And if you've seen my videos on Facebook, you heard me talk about it. Why you needed to grab certain, ammunition that you get for the range. If it's not made in this country, you needed to go ahead and stockpile some of that stuff so that you'll have it. And that's what I did. But typically, I wouldn't stockpile personal defense ammo. You can find personal defense ammo. You can find birdshot. You can find refurbished birdshot, stuff that people shells that been used at the range, and they done went ahead and refurbished them and reboxed them and sell them to you. You can find those in the gun store on sale, and they shoot just fine, especially at the range. If you're just going out to the range and you can get boxes of that cheap, I get it from a sporting goods store here. I get boxes of that cheap, and when I'm at the range, not the indoor zone, but the outdoor spot, and I go out there and I bust all that birdshot off, just training with it, doing combat reloads and all that. Now I'll go over that kind of stuff in the future. But typically, a shotgun, it's a devastating weapon. Typically, you only need one shot. I know we talk about combat reloads and all this kind of stuff, and reloading your shotgun, but typically, if you run your shotgun dry in a gunfight in your house, man, you got something serious going on. If you got multiple assailants coming into your crib, at that point, I say grab a rifle, bro. That's what your rifle's for, But, bumping the night, you want to end the threat with one shot, you can't beat the good old, you call me a FUD if you want to, but you can't beat a good old shotgun. And I'll talk about what makes a good defensive shotgun in a future video. This video been long enough, but I'll talk about what makes a good defensive shotgun in the future. This is mine. This is mine. Get yours. But I'll talk about what makes a good defensive one in the future. But a shotgun for home defense is very, very hard to beat. And trust me, I know people say, yeah, when the shotgun make that sound, click, clack, ooh, it's going to make people shiver in their boots and run. Hey, don't depend on that sound to chase somebody that's determined to break in your crib and do you harm. Don't depend on that sound to protect you. I mean, that's foolish. You make that same sound with a rifle. I can make that sound with my Glock, click, clack, So don't depend on the sound of the shotgun to save you. If you're going to buy a shotgun for home defense, you have to be proficient with it. You have to train with it. And I'll talk more about that in a later video. But shotguns are excellent for home defense. I highly recommend it. And we'll talk about what makes a good home defense shotgun in the next video. And why, loads and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to talk about. And when we talk about a shotgun, training with it and all that. All right? Okay. Joseph Hudson signing off. Thank y'all for taking the time. Look, man, like, subscribe to the channel. If you getting any value out of this, leave a comment. If this sounds stupid to you, let me hear it. I don't care. If you got some constructive criticism, I'll listen to that. That's like I made this video. Somebody like, man, ain't nobody, why you doing a shotgun? You need to get, okay, it's whatever. This is my shotgun, okay? Don't tell me about what you can't do with yours. What you can't do with yours ain't got nothing to do with mine, all right? All right, man. I heard the late Paul Harrell and a friend say that, man. Yeah. All right, man. Y'all, look, stay safe, stay physically fit, stay mentally fit, stay spiritually fit. Look, man, the Lord loves you. I love you. Ain't nothing you can do about that. Talk to you later.